Best Practices for Shippers Today. My guest is Josh Dunham. He is CEO of Reveel. Hello, Josh.
Hello, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you with us again. Josh, let's talk about these best practices, or so-called best practices. What would you say are the 4 steps that best shippers follow today? Let's start one by one. What would be the first one?
Yeah, so the first one is plan. And we've had the ability through the years to either work with or interview literally thousands of shippers. And what we found is that there are things that shippers need to do daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. It's not necessarily just things you do once or twice a year. There's things you're constantly doing. And what we found is that the best shippers out there, they're actually following a very, very similar methodology. And that is that 4-step kind of process. That's a methodology. So it starts with planning, having the data and the analytics to support your plan. The next is, do you have the ability to measure? Do you have the ability to measure, where you're at now, so that you can see where it is that you want to go? Then next is optimize. So it's really being focused on, okay, well, what levers do we have to pull? If it's a negotiation with the carriers, what levers do we have with the carriers? Where is the impact? Where can we optimize? And then finally, it's the ability to monitor. So the ability to monitor not only some of the changes that you've made, but the ability to monitor maybe for fraud or maybe for, on-time delivery, things like that, but really monitor.
Well, let's take those one by one. Plan, for instance, to start with, it can be a challenge for shippers today because they're putting out so many fires. They're dealing with the crises of the moment, and it's hard for them to step back and get a larger picture. Is that not, in fact, a challenge? And how do you achieve that long view and short view at the same time?
Yeah, it is difficult. You look at how do you plan going into next year, right? We have what was just announced recently was the FedEx and UPS GRI. Normally this time it's just the FedEx that is announced. This year we have the luxury of having both announced pretty early. UPS about a month earlier than kind of usual. So now both carriers announced a 5.9% increase going into 2024. So that takes a lot of planning, not only to understand, well, what is the forecast and what is the budget that you're going to create next year, but what's the impact that's going to have, on my business. So you got to do a lot of planning there. I would say the other area that we're hearing a lot of our customers are doing a lot of planning around is box sizes, right? Packaging. So understand, okay, well, we want to have, marketing wants to create a really great product and a really, really great box and experience for our customers when they get the delivery. But if they create a box that weighs a few pounds and the dimensions, move things into a dimensional weight, well, that kind of puts pressure on the operations team, right? So there's not a good cross-departmental plan that was put in place.
Measure what? Measure how? KPIs, key performance indicators? What are you measuring and how?
That's exactly, yeah. So KPIs. Now KPIs are different for every business. There's different businesses that measure different things. For some it's price per pound. For others that are really, really important, or where customer service is really, really important, it's okay, well, what's the transit time? What's the on-time percentage, right? So there's a lot of different KPIs there. Average cost per package is a very, very popular one. But those are all things that shippers are going to need and want visibility directly into.
Having that information flows very naturally, it seems, into your third point, and that is optimize.
Yep.
But it also is kind of a vague word. You tell a company you need to optimize. What do you mean by that, and how do you use that information to achieve that goal?
Yeah, so optimize is really around, and you're right, it starts with understanding the KPIs, but then it also optimize has to do with, like, if we just use the GRI as an example, right? It's okay, I understand that FedEx and UPS both announced a 5.9% GRI, but where am I sustaining the largest increases, right? Knowing that information then allows me to work with my carrier to optimize in the areas that I'm sustaining the largest increase, right? Other areas that you can optimize is focus on where you spend the money in your supply chain. So if it's parcel shipping, for example, where do you spend the most money? Focus your negotiation efforts and your optimization efforts in those areas. Don't focus on something and don't let the carriers come in and give you big discounts in an area that you don't ship. It doesn't really matter. It's not going to move the needle for you.
All right, so monitor. The ability to continue on an ongoing basis to make sure that your carriers are up to snuff, that you're using the right ones, that you're optimizing. Based on what? Carrier report cards, feedback from carriers themselves, external information? How?
Yeah, so it's really carrier data. So
Yeah.
monitoring the carrier data. Are you being efficient with your shipping, right? So am I using the correct service levels? Meaning, am I shipping something across the street overnight when I could just send it ground and get there the same day? So are you monitoring that? Are you monitoring for security and fraud, in your shipping? We have a lot of customers and they give their account number out to hundreds or thousands of different partners, and it's very difficult for them to monitor for fraud. Do you have the ability to monitor on-time performance, days in transit? And if it is, if there is a lack in delivery on time, do you have the ability to get a refund? Are you able to monitor for that?
Floating above this whole discussion is the word that we haven't actually used yet, technology. How does technology, or how will technology change the way that shippers engage with carriers?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So technology will really allow shippers the visibility to be able to go to the carrier and know areas to optimize, know where they have the ability to optimize, know what they can actually ask for from the carriers. Now, technology, it's no mystery that technology disrupts, industries, particularly professional services industries. That's really what we're trying to allow customers to do, is leverage technology so that they don't need to hire a consultant and bring in a bunch of people to help them, but that they can leverage the technology, use the data and the analytics and the technology to work with the carriers directly and provide a level playing field. So it's just having the same insights that the carriers would have in the business, at the shipper level.
Interesting how technology, of course, is making possible all four of these things that we mentioned before, that would, in a way that would never have been the case before. Great. Josh, thank you very much for your insights and some really good advice as to how shippers can engage in best practices with carriers today. I really appreciate that. But I do want to ask you very briefly about Reveel. Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, so Reveel is a data and analytics business that helps with parcel spend management. And really what we're doing at Reveel through technology is disrupting the parcel consulting space. And what I mean by that is we are allowing shippers to essentially do what we would have done in the past as consultants, but to do it on their own with the carriers. Provide them with the data and the analytics to go to the carrier and negotiate their own deals, have visibility into important KPIs, and have very, very deep visibility into reporting, data, and analytics of their shipping data.
Again, Josh, thank you so much for joining me to talk about these important issues. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Bob. Great seeing you.
I've been speaking with Josh Dunham of Reveel. Thank you very much for watching.